Good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whenever it is that you may see this. And it's another Walkie Talkie on a Thursday. And I may have made a mistake today. It was raining earlier, it stopped. And I've come out without an umbrella. And I think I may have made an error. Because I can feel a few spots of rain. But we'll try and get through it. So today is Quake Day. We're going to be talking about. And hopefully I can get this done without getting drowned. Wouldn't that be nice? Without getting drenched. It'd be fun. So, squirrel. We'll do our best to get a video together. How wonderful. It's over here. So, just looking at something on the side there. I don't know what the hell it was, but no, it's another spot of rain. This could be a disaster. Now, listen, I'm not somebody that seeks mega hot climate. I don't mind a bit of rain, but when it's all the time, it gets really annoying. And hey up, squirrel fight. It gets really bloody annoying when it's all the time, you know? I mean, living in a bloody vitamin D free zone where I live right now is bad enough, you know? I mean, look at that. That is 80% of the frigging time here, and you just get sick and tired of it. So, 80% of the time outside here is under a grey sky. No wonder I have to take vitamin D tablets. I don't know. I'm going to show you something in a minute to prove that I'm not mad. So you'll just witness that. A person came quite close to actually catching my arm. And I'm going to show you something. It's normally when this happens, I'll cut that out of the video because I don't want to be that person. But this is a footpath. And I'm just going to go a little bit beyond at the end of this. I'm just going to show you something, and I'm going to present it without comment. So, person just went by on a bike, and this is what I'm about to show you. I'll see you in the park. All right, here we are at the park. It's miserable, still rainy. So let's crack on with our subject matter for today, which is Quake. Okay. So, after playing Doom to death, I was ready for another FPS. And of course, sort of as the mid-90s rolled on, it announced that they were working on a new first-person shooter. And it wasn't Doom 3, it was a new one called Quake. I was like, oh, interesting. At this time, I did have a PC. Still was primarily gaming on console, but I did have a Windows 95 PC. It was a Pentium 100. It was the one that I got from the place I was working at the time, that the boss there gave me. And so when it had I had a CD-ROM player for it. So Quake comes out and I'm all over this. I've been waiting for it for a while. It was kind of revolutionary in the sense that Doom was often referred to as not truly 3D. People call it 2.5D. A clue to this is that the staircases in Doom, you couldn't walk underneath. It was solid. So you couldn't like go under a staircase as such. It was all a lot of clever trickery. But one of the giveaways was, if you ever looked at anything in the environment, so if the creatures that you kill, your collectibles, they're always facing towards you. You can't walk around. As you walk around them, you're only ever seeing them in a 2D representation of them. Sorry, that wind is quite biting. As you look. So it was great, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't fully 3D. Quake was a new engine built from the ground up, and this was 3D. The objects in the environment, you could walk around, they had 3 dimensions to them. You could go under stairways and you could look up and down. Now some people might say, well, you could do that in Doom. Not with the proper version of Doom, you can't. You can do it with GZ Doom or any sort of Doom mod that enables you to do that. But in actuality, with Quake, you could look up and down out of the box, but with Doom you couldn't. And so when Quake come out, it was quite revolutionary. It was taking things into a new direction that id games, first-person shooters, hadn't been before, and it was glorious. I remember getting Quake and popping in the CD-ROM and installing it and firing up the game, and immediately you get the absolutely fantastic 9 Inch Nails soundtrack. Now, Trent Reznor had been a fan of Doom and he wanted to do the soundtrack to Quake. What's a little interesting side note is that you have a nail gun in the game, and the ammunition boxes for the nail gun has the 9 Inch Nails band logo on it. Sort of the inverse N-I-N. It was just truly awesome hearing that soundtrack for the first time. Now, there's a little interesting aside to that. When the soundtrack rights were signed up, and I'm trying to make sure, I'm going to try and remember this correctly. Trent Reznor's record label that he was signed to put a caveat in there, which was the soundtrack could not be installed on a computer. Look at this little blackbird. Look at that. Hello. Hello there. Yeah, the soundtrack could not be installed onto the hard drive of your computer. It had to play from the CD-ROM. Now, normally when you would install a game back then, you could pop the disc out and you wouldn't need it. But in this case, no, if you didn't have the CD-ROM in the drive, you didn't get the awesome soundtrack that accompanied the game. And what was interesting about that is that actually affected the digital sales of Quake for quite a number of years. It wasn't until more recent times, when it was re-released, that it actually had the 9 Inch Nails soundtrack integrated with the game. So if you were, say, bought it off Steam a few years ago, before the remake, or not the remake, but the remastered version was released, you didn't get the 9 Inch Nails soundtrack. You had to go and download that separately, which of course wasn't exactly legit, even though you had the game. Now, I believe, and again I could be wrong here, that Trent Reznor regained the rights, so that's how it was resolved. But certainly back a few years ago, no, because I actually had it on Steam. I was like, where the hell is the soundtrack gone? Now I still got my original copy, so I was playing it on the laptop that I had prior to getting my PC. That had a CD-ROM drive in it, so I actually popped the disc in, and hey presto, started playing the soundtrack. Interesting, just a little interesting aside there. But yeah, but nowadays, no, that issue was resolved, and now when you get Quake, the remastered version, which I think was a free update on Steam if you already had it. Mine just updated to the newer version, and the soundtrack was included in it, as well as some other enhancements as well. Actually going back to the subject, my Walkie Talkie yesterday, that was a great example of a remaster done properly. And when I say about remasters, that's kind of what I mean, how it was done. I think Night Dive did that. Pretty sure they did. But yeah, did a great job with it. They enhanced the game. But yeah, I remember going into that game and it was weird for the first time when I was playing it on PC. Just the mechanic of looking up and down and stuff was quite strange. But I absolutely loved it. It was, for me, I mean, you play it on the higher difficulties, it was a bit more challenging than Doom. Now, it always felt like there weren't as many bad guys in Quake, but they were tougher. Like the ogres, for example, that have a chainsaw on one of their arms, and they fling a constant stream of grenades at you, which of course do a considerable amount of damage. And they're one of the lower bad guys, one of the lower end bad guys. You come across them very early on in the game. And you have standard grunts as well. Some fire like a laser at you, and some just fire like the standard bullets at you. So yeah, there was a notable difficulty spike, but I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was such an improvement, you know, graphically over Doom. Now, a lot of people do complain that it's very brown looking. That doesn't especially bother me, to be honest. I just think that was the aesthetic style of the universe that the game was set in. As I say, I still thought it was a great looking game at the time. And just getting to grips with the 3D environment was fun in of itself. You know, one of the things as well that was notable was there was no map. In Doom and Doom 2, you had a map that you could call up, but they did away with that in Quake. So actually, learning the environment became more of a challenge in of itself. Now, I think there have been mods subsequently that have put maps into the game. But when I first started playing it back in the mid-90s, I'm very certain that there wasn't any maps. Now, for the setting of the game itself, it was kind of weird. It's a bit of a Lovecraftian style game. You know, you've got these creatures in there. It does have very Lovecraftian overtones, and also sort of medieval as well. It's kind of a bit of a mishmash, and it's unique in that sense. Like, you've got guys running at you in medieval armour with swords, and then you've got another one who's bigger, and he can hit you with a sword, but also shoot fireballs as well. But you have different bosses. You need to collect these rooms, and you have these different bosses, and they're all sort of, you know, again, this kind of weird Lovecraftian style bosses and what have you. There's some truly hellishly difficult parts of that game, thanks to some of the enemies, of which of course I've conveniently forgotten the name of many of them, but that's not really necessary for the purposes of this video. Stylistically, it was unique, married to that soundtrack, and, you know, like I say, the environment, the architectural stylistics as well. You have sort of industrial, modern, well, I say futuristic, not modern, futuristic environments married to a very medieval architecture as well. And that kind of reminded me a bit of how Doom was. You know, you have the sort of high-tech UAC environment, and then you have the sort of nightmarish hellscape type environment as well. There's a nice contrast going on. But I really liked it. In fact, I just have the urge to go and play it right now. But no, we'll do this video. So yeah, it was a wonderful thing. It was such a brilliant game. Say very challenging, but I played through it, played it to death. Got all the runes, killed all the bad guys, killed the end boss. And yeah, you know, it's another one of those games that I do go back to. Now, Quake had some mission packs, actually official add-on packs that you could buy. And I remember the pack that I got actually had some of these. It was the big box. It came with the Quake CD-ROM and this like big rectangular box, and it had the other CD-ROMs for the add-on packs as well as one which was like a complete conversion of Quake. It was an entirely different setting. Even had different weapons. We'll get onto the weapons with Quake as well, because they were again quite a unique mismatch. You had like in Doom, your default melee was your fist. You then later pick up the chainsaw. But in Quake, it's an axe. It's a bloodied axe that you have. And some of your weapons are more fantastical. You've got your standard pistol, shotgun, and then you have the nail gun, which was obviously a riff on the chain gun. But then you have weapons like the lightning gun, which just fires a constant stream of lightning from it. And then you have your rocket launchers and stuff like that. Now, it would be remiss of me to not mention rocket jumping. There was a thing in Quake which enabled you to get to higher levels or higher platforms. Obviously, it cost a bit of a damage, but that would involve you looking down, jumping up, and then when you were at the apex of your jump, you would shoot and fire a rocket, and that explosion would then propel you a little bit further upwards. Now, you couldn't do that in Doom because Doom was 2D, but there was in Doom a similar part of it in one of the levels where you pick up an invulnerability sphere, and if you were quick and knew where you were going, you could get to a part of the game where... Hello, you okay? Go on. Where you get to a part of the game where if you faced a wall and fired the rocket, it would blast you backwards into this area which got you access to a secret level. So it wasn't entirely new, but jumping it was, because you couldn't jump in Doom. And that became quite a well-renowned feature in Quake. I would imagine, especially in the multiplayer, it would become quite an art form. Now, of course, the number of times I ended up with my character blasted across all four corners of the map trying to do it initially, because I wasn't used to that kind of thing. Yeah, that did happen. But yeah, a lot of fun was had, and I enjoyed it. And then they announced Quake 2. So, needless to say, I was really looking forward to it. I thought, yes, more of this, please. I love the original Quake. And when it came out, I remember being somewhat taken aback. Quake 2 is nothing like Quake. It was entirely different. First of all, it was a new game engine, which looked even better. But the setting and the story was nothing like Quake. The bad guys were gone, they were completely changed. The story was entirely different. This involved you playing as a soldier attacking a planet with new enemies called the Strogg, who were like sort of a cybernetic, biomechanical hybrid race, part organic, part machine. Proper nightmare fuel. But gone was all the Lovecraftian stylings of the original Quake. Now, there's an interesting story, just to quickly go back to Quake, and I would recommend that you seek out videos from John Romero, who left id after Quake, after he worked on Quake. He left id and he went off to form his own company. And Quake was actually going to be quite different to what we got. It was going to be more fantastical. In the way that he describes it, I get the feeling it was going to be a lot more like Hexen, which was another first-person shooter that came out at that time. I think it was through id, but I think it was Raven Software that did it. I might be wrong, but it wasn't. I don't think it was a project that id worked on. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but in any event, John Romero sort of like was subcontracted out to work on other games that weren't actually id working on them themselves. I guess he was out there to help. But in any event, from what I've been able to sort of understand, the original Quake was going to be a lot more like that, and then it sort of got scaled back a bit and just became more of a standard first-person shooter with more standard weapon systems. So, anyway, moving back to Quake 2, it was quite a shock. The soundtrack was a lot different. Still very, very good. The soundtrack for Quake 2 is fantastic. But the game was a lot different. It was no more sort of medieval settings. This was all attacking a planet, a high-tech alien race which had attacked the Earth, and you're kind of on a revenge mission. You fought them off, and you go to attack their planet, and of course, things don't go according to plan. It has a brilliant intro to it where you just see like a body floating in space, like half their skull exposed and what have you. And then your fleet arrives. And with that fleet hello there. When your fleet arrives over the planet, that you start your attack. Well, they have like it's not an orbital defense because it's not in orbit of the planet. It's a huge EMP type gun on the surface of the planet that messes up your approach. You become separated from your other soldiers, and you have to fight your way to achieve the mission. which basically is to shut down the weapons system so you can get your attack back on track. It's a brilliant game. Brilliant game. I always felt at that time it could do no wrong with first-person shooters. They really couldn't. It was always so well polished, so well put together, really entertaining to play. I just loved playing them. Loved playing those games. I've played Quake 2 to death. In fact, on PC, on Steam, there's an RTX version of Quake 2, which looks great. But when it was remastered and re-released, they upgraded the graphics somewhat anyway. Again, retaining the original, but just polishing what was already there. It still looks great today. The gameplay is still really good. Good, challenging environments, challenging enemies, and you do feel like you're on you're fighting to achieve these very specific objectives. Just going back, one of the things I forgot to mention about Quake was that it was a hub. You start out in a central hub and go out to the various levels from this central hub, which was kind of, again, a departure from Doom. So yeah, that was something I forgot to mention about Quake. It not exactly purely linear, where at the end of Doom, between each episode, the game would end and then you would start again. In Quake, you just go back to the hub and go to each of the different worlds that you need to fight in. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. I forgot when I was talking about Quake. Quake 2, it's a little bit more linear in that sense. You're just constantly progressing forward to different objectives. So, not really episodic this time. And that sort of works because you get the feeling that you're part of a continuous campaign on the ground. You have an objective that's broken down into areas, but you're just constantly moving forward to that objective. So yeah, it was a lot different to Quake. In every way, shape and form, it was a lot different to Quake. But it works, weirdly enough. It was bizarre, but why wouldn't you call it something else? But it works. And what was interesting was that then became the platform for subsequent Quake games. Now, after Quake, they announced Quake 3, so obviously I'm very excited. It was a new engine, it looked amazing. And then the kicker, I'll never forget how I felt when they announced this. This was a tournament-based game, deathmatch, that kind of thing. There was no campaign. There was no single-player campaign. It was called Quake 3 Arena. I was devastated. As somebody who didn't really play multiplayer games, certainly not on PC, this was just like, this was a disaster. The only saving grace was that you could play it single player. And I'd upgraded my PC at the time. I had a Pentium 2 350. Had a Voodoo Banshee graphics card. You know, it was kitted out to play games proper style. I just remember thinking, brilliant. Why have they done this? And I think it was probably to sort of take on Unreal Tournament, which was another sort of multiplayer centric shooter. But I just remember feeling really sort of, well, very gutted at the time. Couldn't really understand what the hell it were thinking. And I was like, no, I'm not having this. But I did end up buying it once I learned that you could play the game against bots in a single player. And part of me wanted to do this to satisfy the curiosity of seeing these amazing graphics, and they were truly incredible. I would have loved to have seen a single player version of Quake 3 that had a single player campaign that used those graphics. Because the problem when you're in an arena shooter, you're constantly moving, you're constantly shooting. You don't really get much time to stop and appreciate how wonderful the architecture is, how great the graphics are. You know, like when you clear an area in a first-person shooter's campaign, you know, you can wander around a bit and have a look, check out the environment. Couldn't really do that. Couldn't really do that with Quake 3. And that was the biggest disappointment with it. I always feel like it was underappreciated for just how good it looked. Basically because you don't really get the chance to take in the environment. You're legging it around the level trying to pick up power-ups and weapons and shooting bad guys and avoiding being shot. It's hectic. And I do like it. But I don't play it online. I just play it against the bots offline, and believe me, that can be challenging. That can be fun in itself, but it's a short burst. It's like, I'll just have a quick go of something. It really was filling in that slot. But yeah, I just remember being really disappointed. And then they came out a few years later with Quake 4, which in some ways is not a remake of Quake 2, because it references things that have gone on in Quake 2. I'm not going to give away any spoilers for people that haven't played the game. But boy, oh boy, was this game visceral. Utilising the same technology that they did with Doom 3. Quake 4 really kicks ass. It is a brilliant game. And it's quite shocking. Again, for people that haven't played it, I'm not going to give away spoilers, but you get part way into that game and so much shocking happens. And all I can say is that there's an attention to detail which regards your elevation when you're walking around after this thing happens, that they adjusted to compensate for something that happens to you. It's a small detail, but it's in there in the game. And there's probably a lot of game developers that wouldn't have put this detail in. And it's hard for me to tell you without spoiling it. And you're probably thinking, well, the game's years old. Yeah, but there's always people that have never played it. And what happens was quite shocking when I played it. I wasn't expecting it. And all I remember thinking is, okay, what happens now? A similar thing was replicated a few years later in Wolfenstein 2 New Colossus, and that's all I'm going to say. But anyway, this game was awesome. The graphics were great. Unfortunately, the PC that I had at the time, which was a Pentium 4, did struggle a little bit with it. Now, the version I got on PC came with Quake 2, and I think it had its mission packs as well. A couple of the mission packs that came out for Quake 2. It was in like a black box, like a black cardboard box. Now, I've still got that, but sadly that cardboard box wasn't particularly well glued together. I had to rebond parts of the card on the box because not long after getting it, the glue started to come undone and the box started to open up, which was very annoying. But I fixed it, rebonded it, used some proper card glue, and I used super glue because that could damage the artwork. I used some really good card glue that I had and sort of carefully rebonded it. But yeah, really good game. Graphics were incredible. It built on Quake 2. Like I say, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was a remake, but it actually isn't, because there are events that happen in the game that do relate directly to Quake 2. But it's really good. A really good game. I heartily recommend it. And weirdly enough, I don't think that has ever been remastered for modern systems. Now, I might be wrong, but when I play Quake 4, it's like old. I'm going to have to check that out. It's been a while since I've played it, and when I come home, I might check it out, see if it's got... I'll know if it has, because it'll probably have the Night Dive logo when you boot it up. If it has, then it has been. If not, then it hasn't been touched. Isn't that weird? You think I'd remember, wouldn't you? But I can't for the life of me. I know they did with Doom 3, but I don't think they did with Quake 4 for some reason. Anyway, we now start to get into a bit of sketchy territory for me and Quake, because Quake did sort of swap itself around with regards to the multiplayer, and that was something that I didn't bother with. So I can't really talk about it. I'm not even sure what they were called, but was it Enemy Territory or something? Was it Quake Wars or something? I don't know. I never bothered with it. Again, I think I say I never bothered with it. I did briefly play one, and I think it was something that, again, you could play with bots. But it wasn't really what I was looking for. And it was what was that, Wolfenstein? See, I don't know. It's sort of after Quake 4, I really sort of drifted away from it. I know they did other stuff, but it wasn't really in the Quake environment for me. It was like spin-off. It was spin-off stuff. And maybe I should look into them. I do think I've got them, you know. A few years ago on Steam, they were selling like the Quake collection of all of the games, and I got that. That's how I got all the Quake games on Steam, and from that was how I got the sort of free updates to Quake and Quake 2. So I do have them. I've just never played them. So I might check them out, see what they're all about. I'm sure I had one on the Xbox 360, and I just remember thinking, I wasn't overly keen on it. But at that time, it was probably sandwiched between a load of other games that I had. So rather than me just go, yeah, no, they're rubbish, I might check them out at some point. See, first of all, what they're about, and second of all, are they any good? So, but yeah, like Quake 4 was the last one I played all the way through to completion. Once you sort of get to I think was it squad based or something? I don't know. I just remember thinking this is not the Quake I like. I kind of tolerated Quake 3, but you know, I wanted Quake 5. That's what I wanted. I wanted a great single player experience, a great single player campaign. I didn't want, you know, more multiplayer mayhem. So that's pretty much brings me to the end of it. I do love Quake. I think sometimes, unfortunately, it's kind of been the poor relation to Doom. And the same thing really has happened to Wolfenstein at times. Now, Wolfenstein was successfully rebooted by Machine Games a few years ago. I think off the back of the success. Well, I don't know, actually saying that, I don't know which come first. Whether Wolfenstein came before Doom or whether Doom came, whatever. The first one they did a really good job with. I'll just talk briefly about Wolfenstein while I finish up my walk. I will do a proper video on that. Actually, I may as well, and then that's like the id trilogy, isn't it? I'll have done Doom, Quake, and then Wolfenstein, like the three major id games. But I enjoyed the first one. The second one I thought got a bit silly. A New Colossus, I think the second one's called, Wolfenstein 2 New Colossus. I thought that was a bit silly. Gameplay was great. Graphics were brilliant. Action, superb. But some elements in the story and some characters in that game got right under my skin. And delves back into the fact that games talk too much. That was one of them. Don't care. Shut up. Let me shoot things. I thought the characters were done in an annoying way when they didn't need to be. They didn't need to be. And it made me resent some of the characters that were supposed to be on my side. It was badly handled, I think. You know, whoever came up with writing the characters that way, I think did a pretty bad job. That's just my opinion. You know, when you make characters that you're supposed to be on your side and they're massively annoying and you want to blow them away because they never show up, I don't like being spoken to in video games. I know it's my character and not me, but the way this character was speaking to your character, in other words, yes, you're playing BJ Blazkowicz, but it's through your eyes, and I don't like that. Because immediately my response is to tell that person where to go, which it would be in real life. I would go and tell them to take the face for a shit, and that would be it. So having to endure all of that crap in a video game really wound me up. It wasn't the subject matter, it was how my character was spoken to. We'll just walk around and then we'll call it a day. But anyway, I don't want to get too involved in that because that's for another video, for another Wolfenstein video. A Wolfenstein video. So yeah, it was going back to Quake. Love the series, love the games. I do need to visit, I'd like to say revisit, but I think it would be more accurate to say visit the subsequent releases after Quake 4, see what they were about. Maybe do like a little update chat about that. But yeah. So that's that. The topics wonderfully supplied by Superior Inferiority. I hope that I covered them well enough. I just do things from my own experience. So our chat on here, it's always my own experiences. So that's what I'm talking about on here. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Yeah, that's probably a good place to stop. It's actually starting to rain again. Getting windy and rainy. Wonderful. It's a good job I didn't bring my umbrella out. It would be inside out again. So, weather permitting, hopefully it'll clear up a bit tomorrow. Don't mind the wind or the rain, just not both together. We'll come out with something else. You know what, I might, if weather permitting, I might do Wolfenstein tomorrow, and then we'll finish up the week and we'll get the id trilogy of its mainline games out of the way. I know they did others, but those are the three. When you think of id and you think of the big three games, it's those. So yeah, we'll call it. I'll get this camera away before it gets too much water on the lens. It's waterproof, but you get water on the lens. It distorts the image. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon with the next one. Have a good day.